Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad everybody's able to join us today on this little webinar we like to call Virtual Brunch with Actual Nerds. My name is Leighton Rasco from Attendee Management. I am a nerd, and I'll be moderating our discussion today. Quick question off the top. Have you ever joined a webinar and thought, you know what this webinar needs? More of me. Well, this is the program for you, because we want to hear from planners, event professionals, and everybody about your recent experiences in the return to live events and also the transition to virtual events. So what have you been doing? Start thinking now, because we're going to get to you quick. But first, more of me, because I have a list of housekeeping notes that I'm going to read as the stragglers straggle on in. So please update your Zoom name to reflect your full name as well as the name of your organization. Go ahead and do that now while you're thinking about it, and we're all just going to wait until you guys get done with that. We'll give you a few more seconds. All right. Participation is good. Background noise is bad. Muting while not talking is highly encouraged. This is an Ask Anybody Anything style webinar, so your questions and participation are encouraged. We are going to be checking the chat for questions as well as looking for virtual and physical hand raises. There is also the option of simply verbalizing your thoughts in the form of speech, but remember to unmute yourself before you do that. Last week here in Central Texas, we got our first taste of fall weather. The changing of the seasons always makes me want to curl up with a cozy blanket and a pumpkin spice latte and watch previous episodes of Virtual Brunch with Actual Nerds. If you too are feeling fall approach and need some webinars to stream, just go to attendingnet.com/archive, and that's a great place to get your fix. So instead of introductions today, we're going to just ask that everybody jumps in and feels equal and ready to jump in. But when you do, just go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us your name, where you work, and what you do. So with all that out of the way, let's get on to the first question. Joan Buvek has a very concise question, which I love. How do you fund virtual meetings? So
sponsors.
That's a great answer. Can you elaborate?
Can I? May I? Mother, may I? We're seeing a lot of virtual events in the beginning started out as free. Everybody was giving them away. Starting to see a positive trend now with both virtual and hybrid events charging a fee. So charging for attendance and or charging for access to the recordings. And really working on the ROI message for sponsors so that sponsors will be more likely to participate, and whether that's in a booth and they get a chance to meet one-on-one with attendees, or advertising on the virtual platform or the mobile app. And contrary to some people's opinion, virtual is not free. You still have production costs, you still have time costs. So you need to recoup those dollars, and people understand that. And I think we are seeing in events that people are beginning to contribute. Now, there are some people that are doing, you pay what you can. Some people are doing after the event, you pay what you think it was worth. I think that's kind of interesting. But from a sponsorship standpoint, I think that you need to be charging what you would charge for a live event, maybe the full amount, maybe 25% less, but I sure wouldn't be giving it away anymore. That's my
I have a follow-up question. Have you, to the group, to anybody who has input, have I've seen both kind of just a standard price. I mean, when getting away from free or can pay what you want to kind of a thing. And then, or tiered approach, like, okay, I just want the recordings, or I just want, has anybody had more success one way or the other, or feedback, or just seen something work like that? Like tier, just kind of a one, okay, everything it's, you know, $300, you know, free access, or kind of more of a tiered approach to access. And I think that's especially important to think about too once we get to more hybrid meetings too. I'm not sure if anybody has any, what works, what hasn't worked.
Don't know what works yet.
Not yet.
I can say, Christina, I can tell you that I haven't done it or hosted that, but I have been invited to one that had tiered options where like you could have signed up for the conference, and then after the fact they did like a, you know, did you miss it? Could you not make it? You can get all of the recordings for, it was like a flat rate, like $100, or if you want X, or it was like you can get the keynote for a certain like 20, and then you can have all the recordings for like a month for 100. So, and I mean, I definitely was like, oh, that's really handy, because it's not something I probably would have attended the whole thing, but might have liked access to. So I know it's out there.
From supplier perspective, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of discounting going on. Now recognize this is supplier side, but I'm hearing from a lot of the programs that are going on that quite a number of them are struggling with the number of suppliers that are willing to come in. They're getting response from their big suppliers that have the giant sponsorships, because those were already paid. I mean, I'm talking about the $250,000, you know, kind of categories. So they're kind of stuck, you know, but they are having trouble, and they're all discounting. And I'm just going to throw it out there because I'm active in a number of organizations, but unfortunately MPI is one that on the virtual side for like hosted buyer appointments and things like that, things that, you know, we would be interested in at this point in time, they're not discounting at all. The majority, and I mean 90% of them, are discounting to get suppliers. Our budgets, you have to look at it from the DMO, hotel, transportation, everything else that we all know is part of our industry. A lot of people have been affected with their budgets, and that's the reason I think they're having to discount. So just showing those suppliers.
What type of discounts are they getting? Like 50%, 75%? I mean,
yeah, pretty significant. Most of them are around somewhere around the 50% range. A few are a little bit less, but I call that significant because you usually don't see that kind of stuff going on unless on the supplier side, we're buying giant marketing packages too, which sometimes marketing packages, or with some programs, if you're buying multiple programs, you know, that they're producing, then you're going to get, you know, discounts. And those are usually the only two ways, but not even that significant then. So.
yeah, it'd be really great to see some really creative ways to make sponsorships in virtual meetings, you know, come closer together.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like I mean, to Karen or anyone who has seen anything, I mean, do you feel like right now the sponsorship opportunities particularly for suppliers are still kind of in the same box? Or are we finding, and you know, it's like, okay, I can't afford that box right now. I can't, like the traditional ways that, you know, the industry has always treated like sponsors and suppliers. Oh, well, there's no exhibit hall, so there you go. You know, have you seen many more inventive ways for sponsorship? And, you know, do you think that's something that the industry needs, you know, to kind of turn on its, you know, pivot for everybody's favorite word?
What I liked was turn on its pivot. So that double pivot?
Yeah, double reason. Oh man.
I don't see, I mean, looking at some of these packages, once again, supplier side, but looking at these packages, I don't see them looking outside the box very much right now. And I think that's kind of disappointing. They're moving in the digital direction, but hey, guess what, guys? Most of our marketing, had already shifted to digital. Some of them are offering these virtual, expos where people can kind of drop in. Event Connect is a good example of that, who is its own entity. We all know that. I call them the octopus, because they just keep adding more and more arms on. But like it or not, they are someone within our industry. And I'm not saying they do a terrible job or anything. They just are what they are. But they did like a virtual, and people could drop in and look at your content, which what I saw, because I did not take up any suppliers' times. Obviously, being a supplier, that was, I found out later, real aggravation to some of them that we're trying to exhibit, because stupid other suppliers, no offense, but they were actually dropping in on them to say hi. What? You have only a certain amount of slots to work with planners, and you want your people occupied, if somebody's dropping in or knocking at your, video chat or something. So anyway, but all I saw was that they had PDFs, and then I guess they were going to be able to talk to somebody and maybe see a video or something. Some of them are talking about virtual exhibit space, but it seems to me that the production cost on that, like as a DMO CVB, what's that going to cost me? How effective is it going to be? And how long is that particular option? Or the, as Jim Spellos so succinctly and all the rest of you have said, not every platform works with every platform. So, are you going to be limiting yourself if you even try to do that? So, yeah, I'm just not seeing a lot of creativity yet.
Hey, Karen,
I think that,
what would interest you as a supplier?
Well, that's kind of hard to say too, because I don't know.
You had a wish list.
Yeah, if I had a wish list, it's of course that there would be something that would go direct to the potential people that I can speak to, which are the planners. Even if it's something opt-in, like you're going to register for this event, whether live or virtual. So here's the different people that you can connect with. Here's video of theirs or whatever it is that they're requiring. Something that allows the direct connection. And I don't even mind, or wouldn't even mind, that it's a one-way street, just so long as I know that it's getting to them, as opposed to I'm going to wait around for 3 days in a row for a potential drop-in, somebody to actually, say, hey, I want to chat. Can you answer a question? So I think that's where a lot of them are failing, because I know they don't want to give their list, and I totally get that. We've always dealt with that. But you still have to have the ROI. The ROI has to be bumped up when we don't have that personal connection, and especially to a supplier like me, because those of you that know me know that I am a connection person. I am, once upon a time, touchy-feely. Now it's like, stay away. but you know what I'm saying. I mean, for me, it's meeting people. It's seeing all of y'all, the people that I know. I can see you when I go to an event, and then I'm meeting new people, whether through you or just being there. That is what's important to me. So.
yeah, when you buy a trade show booth, what you're really buying is an opportunity to talk to people that are walking by.
Right.
So a virtual trade show, how do you engage a virtual audience? It's a tough question, and maybe the answer is beforehand, like before the event.
And if I could put in a little plug for the MPI Texas Education Conference virtual that we're working on now for October 1st, tec.mpithcc.org. The on-air platform that we're using, does have a way to book, and tell me if I'm wrong, Jill and Jennifer, but it does have a way to book one-on-one conversations, video, two-way, with individual exhibitor planners. So they can sign up, or they can just sort of wander by. In fact, if you're in sort of the exhibit time frame, so hey, it's the trade show online, the virtual trade show, customers can enter a waiting room. And so Karen, you could say, okay, well, now I'm ready to talk to Christina, and you've got some time. You've got maybe your videos and brochures and things that are available for download. And so I might be interested in Plano, but don't have time to talk right now. So I can still grab information and then go on. So there's some compromise. The question that I had though, because listening to some of the pricing things, it seems like, and maybe I'm just not with it, but it seems like if you're, I know I'm not with it. If you have budget right now in these times, you should be driving the bus. I mean, it's just like I've got money to spend. Maybe the suppliers, should be sort of saying, well, I'm not going to pay full. I'll give you money. I mean, we'll work a deal, but this is, you're asking me to pay full price for a virtual thing, and it's like, it doesn't cost you as much. It doesn't cost me as much. Let's talk. So I don't know. It just seems like my experience recently has been, I've got money to spend, and so we go, great. Let's see how we can best do that to benefit both parties. But maybe in the sort of hosted buyer or other situation you were describing, Karen, that it's just not working. I don't know.
MPI and I are talking today, specific, like my account manager, but hosted buyer, just so y'all know, this is unique to MPI, but they charge about $5,500 just for you to get 10 appointments off of the list of the quote supposed 100, what am I trying to say? I think it's 100 hosted buyers, not all of whom would qualify for your destination or hotel or whoever it is that you're repping. So that's a pretty significant investment, which we have done for a number of years. But this year, even with it being partially virtual, they're actually not even allowing virtual on the hosted buyer. If you want to do a hosted buyer as the supplier, you have to be on site. They're not even an option.
Is this the WEC you're talking about?
WEC
Okay.
and Grapevine.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're talking about, we've also talked
sorry,
about the
WEC.
TEC.
Yeah, because WEC only. Oh yeah, no, TEC, that's a wonderful option too, Jeff, by the way. Unfortunately, I do corporate market now, and my company still views TEC, even though THCC is my main chapter and will remain my preference, my main chapter for MPI. My organization wants to send our association manager, which most of y'all know I did that market plus corporate for 15 years. And Eddie, who's a great guy, Eddie Gonzalez, has had it now for a little over a year. And so he'll be the one, if anybody gets to go virtual or otherwise, I mean virtual, because that's all y'all are doing for TEC, he'll go, but I don't know that they would pay for 2 people to be part of it, unfortunately, because I would definitely, it's on my list, but it's not going to get approved. I know that. So I looked to WEC, sorry, I thought I had my phone, do not disturb. Anyway, WEC is offering a virtual at $3,500, and I don't mind talking pricing with y'all because it's out there, and if you ask somebody at MPI, they would tell you what it is. They're offering a $3,500 virtual, and that's what we're going to talk about today, but it's more of a drop-in. So it's a catch as catch can. They're expecting 1,000 people, so they say, but they do not have that many people signed up yet. I think they're around halfway there right now. And just as an example, and I'm just doing this because those of you that know me, I'm very transparent. The Connect meetings, though it does cover a lot of different markets, and I'm only interested in their corporate virtual segment, they have like 600 people, but theirs is coming up sooner because theirs is mid-October, and they're doing a full virtual appointments. They also have the on-site where they have over 600 people, or they have over 1,000, excuse me, they do have over 1,000 signed up right now, and over 500 are meeting planners, and that's as of like yesterday. So just giving y'all some general stuff to think about, because I know some of you are like on the planner side, so it kind of gives you perspective on some of this. Who knows, MPI may do something more today when I talk to him, but it kind of doesn't sound that way. They're more talking to me about why aren't you going to be there in person,
Yeah, that event is still going on in Grapevine, right?
And they're busing people to the offsite opening ceremony because there's no walking from the Gaylord to downtown Grapevine. And they're busing people that are doing the President's Dinner from the Gaylord Grapevine to Hilton Anatole, which is interesting. I haven't seen it in print anywhere, but I've heard behind the scenes that they may be offering the bracelets, which at this particular point in time, I don't think are a good idea. Those of you that know about the red, green, and yellow bracelets.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Regarding being hosted at MPI and some of these other meetings, I'm a strong proponent in not accepting those invitations if I feel like I don't have any buying power, especially right now. I mean, we have nothing going on that I would be thoroughly embarrassed to accept a paid trip to a meeting and not have business to give the supplier. So it pains me to see that they're paying that price unless they're vetting the potential attendees. My thoughts.
Oh, those are great thoughts, Lynn, and thank you for your good ethics. It's amazing how many people would take advantage.
Yeah, well, let's shift to another question. I don't know if Stephen Foster, did he join us or did he just submit a question?
I have not seen anybody do a question.
Because we can just steal his question then.
Let's do.
What are you finding? Okay, I'm sorry, stumbled a little bit. What are you finding are still stumbling blocks to getting organization to move forward with virtual and hybrid events? I'd say just in general, the unknown. You know, they've never
commitment.
done it and they don't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at how many things we're getting that are coming up at like for October now, you know, that are like, oh, well, we're going to try to have can we get a quote to do a virtual event? And it's, what is it, September 17th? And it's like, it's October 20th. You know, and I mean, I can't even imagine what the planners who are trying to pull all this together are going through. But on our last one when we did this one, part one, I guess, of the lessons learned, I think the general time frame that people were looking at was like 6 weeks ahead. Like people weren't committing to, you know, whether they were going to have it in person or hybrid or virtual. Even you know, 6 weeks beforehand. And you know, how do you plan any or even get on, you know, let's say you're not making that decision now. So many of the virtual platforms, you know, especially the bigger ones that are more turnkey, you know, seem to be completely filled up. You know, they can't even support it.
Yeah, still.
Yeah, Christina, I don't really have an answer to that, but more of just a little bit of experience. Lynn and I actually, we have a client doing an event at the beginning of November. And so we naturally, thinking ahead, knew that we needed to start asking some questions now. What do you want that to look like? What's the program? And they just, you know, they just don't think that way, not realizing how far ahead it actually takes to pull these details together. You have to know your program before you can just pick a platform, and you need to know who's involved and how do you want them to be seen and what kind of content. And so it was kind of pulling this out, but we've seen the same thing. They're kind of like, well, we're going to do this next month. And it's like, well, hang on. Virtual events, just because you're not going anywhere doesn't mean that they don't take the same amount of time and effort. And one of our team members and I had a conversation this morning, and we both had to tell ourselves, like, we have to remind ourselves that we are event planners and producers, but I'm not an AV technician. I don't actually know how to make your bandwidth better and do this and do that. And I think a lot of us have been put in those shoes of suddenly, because it's virtual, that it's from home and it's easy and we just turn on Zoom and everything's perfect. And it's definitely been a whole different experience. And I think we're finally kind of learning to make that shift to go, okay, hang on. This event is still really important. It's representing the organization for future programming and future sponsorships and future engagement. So it still needs to look nice, and it still needs to have really good production. And it's time to take those like freebies and put some budget back into that. And also say, okay, this is beyond me now. You know, we need to go back to using our professionals. And anyway, that's a couple of different pieces of that topic, but that's kind of been our experience over the last few weeks, kind of making that shift.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Katie, because we talked on previous brunches and other places where you've got now it's like, okay, it's bad enough to do, or it's difficult enough to do virtual because we're not used to doing that. I mean, you almost have to say, okay, well now besides my meeting professional hat, I am now a television producer, essentially. That's a whole new skill set. But also if you start bringing in the hybrid piece of it, now you're doing 2 meetings, and there's a whole different set of skill sets. You're not doing 1, you're doing 2. And it makes it a lot tougher. But thanks for bringing up the thought of bringing in the professionals, because there's a lot of us professionals that are looking for work.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And I think we should call on John Harris because he's driving and he needs to put both hands on the wheel. So, no. You also have to unmute, John. But
oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, I learned how to drive with a stick shift and then beer in one hand and a girl in the other. So that's a whole nother thing. The problem though you have is with the immediacy of Zoom, like I can go into my office here in 5 minutes and invite 300 people to talk immediately. And most people aren't grasping the fact that what Katie said, the outside person is not grasping the fact that's not how the meeting's got to work, I think. And how are we going to educate the other people that, okay, yeah, you can't just look at it, what you're doing when your little group does a Google chat or a Google or, a Zoom that you can set up in 2 minutes and be done. Am I making sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of gray area just in the language we're using, because, I mean, we've put out a quote recently that, we thought they were looking for a pretty extensive registration and virtual meeting interface. And I mean, they literally were just asking what it would take for us to set up a Zoom meeting for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the opposite of what hopefully we're trying to move in the direction of more virtual production, but that's what happened.
It's like that unknown stumbling block is also, I mean, unknown is like what's kind of come up in the future, but also the unknown of all the pieces that it takes. And I totally spoke over you, Jill, so I'll pass the bar to you.
I was just going to say, we were just talking about Stephen Foster's question and he just joined the party.
Sorry I'm late. In respect to my good friends, the Team Rasco, it is Embrace the Suck Day here at Foster and Fathom. So I'm thinking of you guys.
So Stephen, would you take a second and explain Embrace the Suck? Because it probably corresponds exactly to what we're just talking about, like sort of stumbling over these things and figuring out the future and how do we work all these pieces, the technology, the hybrid, I mean, all these various pieces of known is probably falls very well into Embrace the Suck. So would you take a second and explain what
I would be happy to do so. We've seen so much of these, certificates for virtual meeting expert, and we probably, the Team Rasco needs to come up with an Embrace the Suck digital badge so that after you solve everyone's problems, they'll know what it means. So good morning, everybody. I've had the honor and pleasure of knowing Jeff for many, many, many years. I consider him a brother in arms. And I've also had the pleasure of working with the company as a business consultant, a small business consultant for a couple of years. So I love this team. I just love their approach to everything, and they don't shy away from issues. Even though they're family, you'd think they may have a little family dysfunction, but when they get around that business table, they come ready to go to work. And we were talking about prior to COVID, when I was last with them, all of the issues that small businesses deal with. And so it's pretty relevant that as we moved into 2020, we didn't know COVID was coming, but there's this phrase in the military, and I work with a lot of veterans and military spouses and Gold Star families, and especially in the Marine Corps. And if we have any former Marines, you'll validate this. John, I saw a hand go up there. You know, when you're in the middle of training, whether you're at boot camp or you're in the field or you're in the fight, everything sucks. It never goes to plan. And this friend of mine, Jake Schick, combat wounded veteran, introduced me to that phrase. He said, man, you know what? You just got to embrace the suck, because the suck is coming. And you know that. You don't know what it looks like. You don't know when it's going to drop, but it's going to drop. And you win the fight by embracing the suck and pushing on. So I dropped that phrase quite a bit with Team Rasco. And then at our last meeting, Jennifer and Jill showed up. They asked everybody what color t-shirt they wanted, and everybody got their very own Embrace the Suck t-shirt, which we wore on the last day of our meeting. So especially during COVID, when we're all transitioning and pivoting, and especially what you guys do as tech nerds, man, it all sucks right now. And that's okay. Most people don't know that the suck is coming and they're in the middle of it. So they'll spend a bit of time whining and complaining. And it's up to us, the real warriors in the industry, I think, to say, listen, there's nothing wrong with the suck. Embrace it. If you do, you'll beat it every time. It might take you a while, but you'll figure it out. So that's Embrace the Suck. And gosh, I felt like I've done a little consulting this morning. So thank you for that, Christina.
Thank you, Stephen.
Ask the question about what was hesitance? Like, what was the question? Stephen's question about getting people to.
Oh, you just want to revisit the question that we asked?
I just want to
Stephen. He said, what are you finding
he might have an answer.
still the stumbling blocks getting organizations to move forward with virtual and hybrid events?
And I asked that question because my own clients, from a speaker standpoint, but also from a consultant and a facilitator, are, you know, they're still coming to me with, well, we don't know, and we don't know if we want to do a virtual, and what does a hybrid look like? And there's so many platforms out there, and you know, I've tried to reframe the conversation to say, of course you have to meet, of course you have to get together. I mean, why are you even asking that question? Part of that is embracing this suck. So I wondered, as you guys, what you're doing, what are you hearing? Is that question still being asked, and how are you addressing it? And what's the vibe out there?
Yeah, what first answer, I think, is fear. You know, the fear of the unknown. They don't know what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing, really. You know, we're all embracing the suck. So.
Yeah, Katie was sharing with us, you know, like a call with a client that she was recently on, trying to sort of coordinate, oh, we want to have it. And it's like all these questions, but you don't even know the first part of it. And I keep seeing this. I feel like Jim Spello said this a couple weeks ago, but I've seen it with other things. It's like you still have to go back to those basics. Like, what is your budget and what are your goals? And then, you know, it's still a meeting. It's still an event. You know, start there. And, you know, people, there's just so much spinning going around. And then, you know, I do think one of the first things is like, well, how are we going to do it? What kind of platform? And Katie touched on this for a second, but, you know, we get that question a lot. Well, what platform do you recommend? And it's like, well, it depends on all of these other things. Like, what are you trying to represent? Are you trying to do, you know, one of my biggest clients that's just really doing tons and tons of virtual things, but they're all few hour meetings. So they're all these, you know, little virtual meetings. They're condensing everything to, you know, where they would have had a big full day or 2-day internal thing. It's like, you know, a series of 2-hour calls or something. And so, you know, that's real easy. We're just, you know, putting some information out there, getting them to register, you know, they already have Zoom. So like real simple, but, you know, then there's plenty of them that are completely different, or the experience needs to be different. You know, the clients, you know, it's a tech company. Well, then no, you don't want to have a bunch of people to just jump on a Zoom call. So it kind of just still goes back to the same, the same things. And, there's lots of partners out there that can help, bridge those gaps. That's the other thing that, Katie had described is like just having all of a sudden needing to be an expert on all of these things. And it's impossible. Like you can't be.
Yeah.
Well,
Christina,
I think
go
that's
ahead.
so important that you guys keep doing this kind of format, because I still don't know why we're even asked that question. You just nailed it, Christina. So I'll give you two new T-shirts to make up Team Rasco. One, structure follows strategy. Exactly what Christina said. Whatever you did before, you're going to do it again. So I responded, I think, to an MPI thing. Someone asked the same question. I said, that's the wrong question. Not what platform, what's the meeting content? And the other is, it doesn't matter. Virtual, hybrid, it's all live. It's all live. And if you approach it that way, you'll figure out the platform, that's like, with all due respect, that's the hotel, that's the room. Put your meeting together and place it in the best room.
That's the best analogy I've had. I mean, it was from a demo that I was on for a platform, a virtual event platform. And he said, we're just, the client I was on with it just wasn't quite getting, well, so what is this? Like, why? It's like, this is your ballroom. Like, just think of it as your your attendees, if you were in a venue, they'd go somewhere and you would direct them somewhere, and then you'd put them in their sessions, and then they'd have breakout sessions, and you'd have signage. This event this is your venue. This is how you're doing it. And it was like, and just like a ballroom, you've got all these different ways you can make it your own. Like, it's that blank space. And it was just such a great analogy. And that client just all of a sudden went, oh, got it. So I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And the ballroom is probably always a little too cold.
Clayton, I wanted just to mention we have a couple of hands raised and a question to ask.
Okay. I don't see them. So Katie, you were talking. Are you one of those?
Or Susan.
Susan.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We have done a couple of the video streamings on site. We're finding most of our business here in Phoenix and our conference centers is local. So when we have large events, most of our speakers are local. So they will come on site, do the video streaming from here, and allow them to have guests on site for those who feel comfortable being in public, social distancing standards, all of that taking place. We've had some success with a few of those events. They do tend to be government groups, which I find interesting. I don't know if they have to have part of their event live for grant dollars. I'm not sure, but it seems to be the government groups that feel comfortable doing these video casting or streaming events. My associations, I just had an association yesterday. Their event is not for a couple more months, and they've been going back and forth with the idea of doing a hybrid or doing 100% streaming, but they have all the technology already available to them at their office, so they're going to be doing the entire thing off-site, which doesn't help our property or bottom line, obviously. But that's kind of the challenges that we're finding. Things that folks that feel comfortable with the technology, they'll come on site and do the hybrid meeting. But they don't have the technology of their own to do it at their office. They'll come on site and do it. But that's been a challenge for us. It did take a long time to ramp up to feel comfortable to make these events successful. But we finally, I think, have turned that corner where we're comfortable, we can do these virtual events, make it look professional. They can, get the attendance that they need to make it, beneficial to their attendees. But it has been a challenge, but we've embrace the suck, I guess. And we've turned that corner, but we are opening up our doors. We are doing some small on-site events. So we're ready to completely get back to live event.
Hey, Susan,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but what Sodexo property are you at?
I'm at the Desert Willow Conference Center and
sure.
the Black Canyon Conference Center too. I sell for both.
Oh, okay.
Great,
So I
thanks, Susan.
wonder how it is in different parts of the country. It seems interesting that there in the desert you're getting the government things. I was thinking maybe you were up more in the DC area or something. So that's
No,
interesting.
we're in Phoenix. It's interesting. We're getting business for groups that will go to hotels for their meetings, but the hotels aren't open for meetings. I don't know if it's because they laid off their staff. So we are picking up some business from people who are ready to meet. They need to meet. You know, their attendees are begging for a face-to-face. So we have the space, so we can social distance them. We can take care of the F&B, in a safe manner. So we're reaching out to those folks that are ready and are ready to meet, feel comfortable, and they're ready to meet.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Part of our discussion 4 weeks ago when we had part one of the lessons learned, it was we actually did go on site for a pretty big meeting, and I feel like that was one of the more well-received pieces of content we put out for that. Has anybody else, since then, what have we been seeing in terms of live meetings? Has anybody been attending or planning?
We're doing events. We're just not. I haven't been to a live meeting other than the ones that are happening here on site.
Yeah, it's almost the same scenario, just from the other side of the spectrum as the virtual meetings. What are the stumbling blocks to get people to accept virtual meetings? It's fear of the unknown. And it's, probably the same answer on the other side of for live meetings. Where is that risk factor? What do you have to do to ensure the safety of or even just the comfort and safety of your attendees?
Leighton, I have not attended a live meeting, but one of my longtime colleagues and partners, and we all office together, just produced two, I'm going to call them hybrid. So there was a live component. Kubota, which is here in Grapevine, did they do these national dealer meetings, so they have to show product. They had that normally is about 1,500 live. They did 300 in person at the DFW Lakes Hilton. The rest were virtual. There was a trade show component to it. I can tell you that the health protocols that they put in were pretty impressive. I'm sure many of you are aware. One of the things is everyone, as they pre-registered, had to fill out the health questionnaire, and then I don't know what registration platform they were using, so I'll stumble, but at the actual on-site meeting, they had those stand-up camera stanchion things where you look into it and it sees your face and it says, oh, Christina is registered, takes her temperature, she signs in. They had all of the personal protection equipment. The spacing was really, really cool. They had to use that big ballroom space there, if you're familiar with that. So it was definitely spaced out. They did some, I did see the visuals of the meeting. I was just in the office the other day, and it was very, very cool. They used a lot of technology to, instead of the big screen behind the stage, which was there were also forward facing screens in every corner of the room, so you could see attendees. And when someone, if Karen asked a question, then she popped up on the big screen. They made some concessions for breakout rooms, scaled some of those back, but everything I heard, it was really, really done really well. And then our good friend Tamara Gaines at Cornerstone just finished a similar type meeting. So I think depending on industry, there are some industries that just have to meet, and they're giving their, at least that's what I'm hearing, they're giving their attendees the option. And I think that's what it's going to look like moving forward. I don't know that we're ever going to you know, certainly not in the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think we're going to get back to fully 100% face-to-face. That's okay. Everyone's going to make personal choices, right? And one of the things I did hear was, because this was an international sales meeting, many of the people in their survey, their pre-event survey, who they wanted to attend, but if they came to Texas, and at that time we were a hot zone, we're not anymore, they would have to quarantine when they went home. So for them, it was just like, I want to be there, but I'm not going through that. So it feels like that messaging is getting out there, that you can meet safely. Be interesting to hear from the venue perspectives, from the CVBs and the hotels, what that looks like for them. But we'll get there. It's going to be up to experts like all of you to say, these are the protocols, they are tested, this is what we can do, and now we're back to where we started, and this whole thing went personal choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Karen is from a CVB, and I think she had her hand up.
I did. I was going to say that because now that I do corporate only, you know, and I miss my association friends. I get to talk to sometimes just because we're good friends, but you know, it's different just having to concentrate on one market, especially since my whole career was doing both of those, association and corporate. But corporate only, what I'm finding a lot of is, even though some of my really big corporation clients that I work with and have for a number of years are actually kind of feeling ready, or occasionally sending out feelers about, you know, meetings and so forth, it's really for their external clients, and then they're having to back off because the feedback is not good, because what's happening internally is they're not even allowed back in their offices yet. So they cannot have in-person meetings or plan for them because their own offices are not open to workers coming in. And that is because of risk factors of infection within their own employee bases. And so until that flips, which we know is somewhere in the future, then they're not even gonna look to do in person. And interestingly enough, some of the really big boys are not even exactly sure how to do hybrid events. I have been flabbergasted by this because, and this is personal conversations, because I know people really well. And there again, this goes back to those of you that know me. Those of you that know me is, if I'm going to get to know you, I'm going to get to know you personally, and we are friends. We are not some business acquaintance kind of thing. And so they're just confiding in me that they're struggling because apparently their companies are not necessarily willing to invest in the ability to constantly produce hybrid and or, you know, virtual only yet. So I'm kind of shocked at that, because I think the science is showing us that that is going to be the direction, you know, that we're going to have to be in. So.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. And Susan put out in the chat, she said, we have groups needing CEUs and they're approaching certification deadlines and they want to meet in person versus online. You know, that's really interesting. Susan, again, from Sodexo, so she's, you know, representing conference centers and seeing these requests of, hey, we got to get these CEUs in.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot.
Yeah, to bring it back to the original question of how do you fund virtual meetings, I've been saying from the beginning, I think your meeting is worth what it's, you know, what you're offering. If your people need CEUs, they should pay for a virtual CEU as much as they paid for an in-person CEU. But if you're trying to sell your meeting attendees your own product, you know, maybe you don't need to charge them to hear your own sales pitch. Who knows?
You know, I didn't realize this. John Harris and I were driving down to San Antonio for, actually the first in-person meeting I've attended, which was just an MPI THCC board meeting. But his wife is in the medical field and needs those CEUs, and she's also needs to get certification in various states where she practices, right? And I'd never heard this before, but like, especially like Florida, he mentioned, and maybe others that require you to take at least one CEU course in state. So, you know, that's going to require face-to-face, person-to-person meeting if you're going to go get a CEU and get recertified in Florida. But I didn't know that kind of thing existed.
We have a question from Arpita at Stanford, and she's kind of got kids in the background with orchestra, so I'm going to ask for her.
Thank you, Jill. I wasn't sure if my audio will come through properly. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
So I was telling Jill, and Jennifer know this well. I work at Stanford University. I manage some programs for one of our energy institutes. And being in higher education, most of our events are free. They're open to the community. We want to reach as many people as possible. So we've been running these bi-weekly seminars called the Global Energy Dialogues, where we invite a very high-profile speaker. It's open worldwide. So what we've noticed is that we have, our registrations look good. For some speakers, we've had up to, over 2,000 people register. For most other speakers, we have at least 600 to 700, 800 people register. But what we've noticed is that our no-show rate is really high. So I'm wondering if all of you guys are seeing that, and what tips could you offer to program planners like myself to increase our attendance for these events. Any pearls of wisdom would be most welcome.
That's such a good, that's such a good question, and just one of my little notes I have written down in case we brought up is we've got to start to rethink our attrition number, or just what our threshold for attrition numbers are, because virtual events are just so, the attrition numbers are huge. People just not showing up.
Oh, somebody just asked in the chat if our events are no charge or paid. They're all free. They're all free to the public. They're all free, worldwide. We are hosting them on Tuesday mornings, mostly at beginning at 8:30 in the morning Pacific time. So we've tried to kind of keep in mind, because a lot of our audience comes from, India and China and Europe. A lot of them are students. It's open to everybody, corporates, students, our sponsors. We are all these, we ask for people to register, but they're all free and open to everybody.
One of the problems, I think, this is John Howe. I think one of the problems our clients experience just with you, with the free event, it's worth what people pay for it. And they become and have no investment in doing it. So if all of a sudden they need to go do X, Y, or Z, you're expendable. You're not there. But if they make an investment, even as small as, let's say, $5, they now have an investment in the deal. I think with students, you might have a different deal where you'll let them have the attrition or have them be able to register for free. But if you get somebody to belly up and pay a little bit for it, with the exception, of course, of this program, you have a little better opportunity for people to participate in the program overall. They have an investment. Doesn't mean they won't belly on the $5, but at least you've got some concept. Or then if you say, if you attend 4 meetings in a row at $5 a piece or whatever, you get the next 5 for free, or some incentive type of thing, or at least have them have to make an investment. The old days with political campaigns, it used to be if you would be invited to a fundraiser, it would be $100 if you went and $200 if you didn't go.
One of the things that, I completely lost my thought. That's so much fun to do in public too.
We're talking about how to increase people that actually show up instead of no show. Is that a help?
That if you don't really feel like you can charge for your event, then at least post its value in some way. So it's $100 value, or our event is being sponsored by so-and-so, so that the value of the event is at least communicated. That was it. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, this is not something that's just unique to hybrid or free virtual events. All of us who have done events in the past live and did them for no charge, had no-show problems, but we had, like, going all the way back to my MD Anderson days in the 80s and 90s. We wanted the students and fellows and folks to be able to come for free, and they just no-showed. Of course, we guaranteed their F&B, so we're out that money. So we started charging like $25 or something, compared to $600, and it helped. But they still had to, they would go to their department. Their departments would pay the $25. They couldn't get the $25 out of their own account. But just a little bit does help. A little skin in the game does help. But it is tough in the kind of things that Arpita sounds like she's doing.
All right, do you guys post recordings afterwards, or do you record it and make that available?
Yes, we do. So all of our events are recorded, and they're nicely finished and produced, and then they.
I play the violin is wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds great.
I have a sophomore in orchestra. She's been playing the violin for a few years now, so it's nice to have it in the background when I'm working.
Yeah, I love it. It's so familiar. But what I was gonna. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Oh, no, so I was just saying that we do record our events, and all of them are nicely produced and finished and posted on our website, like, pretty much the next day. So, and people know that. So I think a lot, hopefully people are watching those, which is also great.
Yeah, and I think it kind of adds to the possibility of attrition too. So like, I'm real guilty of like just registering for something virtually, be like, well, at least I'll get the recording. So maybe just an initial thought, is getting a sense of like, do you tend to join live, or would you like access to the recording? Might just in that sense of rethinking how we think of attrition and no show. It's just something to think about a little bit. I'm sorry, Karen, I think you had something to say too.
Yeah, we're running really close on time. So Karen, do you have something to add real quick, and then we'll wrap it up?
I put it in the chat. It was.
Okay. Do they have to register to be able to access the recording? No, it just goes on.
No, so website. Yeah, our website is open to the community, so anybody can go to the website, and even without registering for the event, they can watch it. Thank you all for these pointers. It's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And thank everybody else who participated in today's discussion. We rely on you guys to really get a feel of what's going on around the industry. So thank everyone for participating and joining us today. And next time we might start charging you guys something just so you show up. No, just kidding. We are accepting sponsorships, and next time we will be having Brent Kruger, who will be participating on October 1st, which is my birthday. So if you want to sponsor that, just send me a mimosa and I'll give you a shout out live on air. But just go and mark your calendars, tell your friends. Don't forget to check out our archives. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time. Adios.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.